Hi everyone, welcome to Football 360. This week's guest, Dave Coldwell, is a bit of a left field choice. He's very recognisable to those of you who like your boxing. He's trained some of the world's top fighters to world titles. He's a pundit on Sky Sports, and so a very recognisable face on television. And he's run his own gym in Rotherham, training amateurs, young fighters, all the way through to some of the world's best fighters. So a real elite guy when it comes to the sport of boxing. But in recent years, he's got involved in grassroots football in Rotherham, working with his son's team. And after 3 or 4 years of doing that, he's developed a much deeper understanding of the game. He's a huge fan of football and always has been. Played a little bit when he was younger. But his understanding and his passion for it has probably grown over the course of the last 4 years as a result of his involvement in the grassroots game. So I thought it'd be a great guy to get on, a guy who is really well versed in how to break down the technical elements of one sport, really well versed in the development of young people, really well versed in high performance, and as a result, the combination of his experience in boxing and his enhancing or ever enhancing experience in football makes for a guy who's got, he's really articulate, really great at explaining his views, and I think this is going to be an episode that many of you enjoy. As I say, if you're a crossover fan like myself, who I'm a huge boxing fan, despite the fact that football is my first love, I think you might find this interesting. But even if you're not a fan of boxing, I would encourage anyone involved in grassroots football to listen to Dave's views on the development of young players, and how to get the best, and how to get the best out of them, and how to help them to get the best out of football. Thanks a lot. Enjoy the show.
Hi Dave, welcome to Football 360.
How you doing, mate? All right?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks pal. Thanks for coming on the show, really appreciate it. I'm going to go straight into a quick warm-up. All of us, whether we're coaches in whatever sport we work in, we get involved in a little warm-up. So to start off with, can you tell me your favourite footballer ever and why?
Ooh. Do you know what? It's a close one, but I would have to go with Diego Maradona because of my great memories of football as a child started. I remember a little bit about '82, but
yeah.
World Cup 1986, Mexico, Aztec Stadium, Argentina, the whole Diego Maradona story, everything, especially that second wonder goal against England. We'll forget about the first one.
Yeah.
The whole thing about Maradona, and I followed him all the way through, to Napoli and everything. I love Diego Maradona. So so I would edge towards him, but through my son, I'm a massive Ronaldo fan because of his attitude mainly, and also David Beckham as well for what he did, not only in football but then coming outside after his retirement and showing that there's a path there as well for people once they've retired.
Yeah. I mean, look, listen, some great picks there. Maradona broke my heart in '86 as an 8-year-old boy, and I think with Beckham, I first saw him and thought he was a bit of a spoilt brat and what have you, and the way he won over me and everyone else in the nation and was a brilliant leader for the nation when he wore the armband. I think it was amazing.
I think the thing about Beckham for me is I like people, not that I like people, but I love the stories of where, yes, somebody's successful, but then they hit a really bad patch, and they cannot. If you look at the stick that he had after the sending off and the level that it went to, for him mentally to get through that and to get through that in such a way, and then you see what he's done afterwards.
Yeah.
That for me, that's a guiding light to anybody that's going through really bad circumstances in any job or any sport. It's a guiding light to say, look, it can get really, really dark, but you can get through it. And for me, that's another reason why I put him right up there.
Class, nice one. I love that. Okay, favourite team ever. So not the team that you support, but the favourite 11 players, the favourite team that you remember as the most impressive, one that really left an impression on you.
That's a difficult one, that is. that is a difficult one because I will always, automatically, because I'm a Man United fan, I'll always go back to 1999.
Yeah.
So to try and go away from that one, it's quite difficult for me. Yeah, I'd have to kind of like go with
Yeah.
the guys of '99 achieved. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, iconic team. I mean, listen, I'm a Middlesbrough fan, and I think anyone who wasn't a Man United fan in the '90s and you know the next decade probably didn't like Man United a right lot.
No.
But when you scored them 2 late goals, I think everyone remembers where they were at that moment in time.
Yeah.
And you know, it might not necessarily be the best Man United side ever, but definitely, you know, it's got to be one of the most iconic moments in British football.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah, good. Okay. Right, question about managers. So pretend you're a chairman. You've got the best 11 players in the world playing against another 11 players who've got to a final with you. You have to pick a manager to win that game for you. So I'm not talking about someone who's going to build a legacy, going to build a philosophy, going to build a club almost.
Just a one-off game.
Just one game, tactically. Who would you pick to win that game for you?
That is a tough one. Are we talking about that's around now?
Could be anyone.
I would have to go, if it's gonna be anyone ever, but in my time in football, I'll probably go Sir Alex.
Yeah.
I would probably go Sir Alex because he was in that many big must-win games.
Yeah.
He had to get it right. Yes, there were times when he gets it wrong like everybody else, but he's that experienced and he had that much know-how to get the best out of certain players in certain situations. Even if he had to adjust the format and how people are playing and you know, he wasn't afraid to take a big name out to put somebody else in the game as well. So for all circumstances, for a one-off game, I would say Sir Alex Ferguson.
Brilliant. I don't think anyone's going to argue with you on that one, pal. One of the most famous, certainly one of the most successful ever. So
yeah.
Okay, final question of the warm-up. Can you tell us a little known fact about Dave Coldwell? So something that you know, most people out there wouldn't know about you. Maybe only those closest to you would know that you could share with us.
A little known fact. I don't know really. I suppose people know that away from boxing, I'm a grassroots football coach.
Yeah. No musical no musical instruments played. No.
I'm pretty much straightforward. Is that boxing and football is my life, and keeping fit, keeping in shape. There's not really anything other than that. My life's pretty boring away from boxing and football. I mean, seriously, I'm either in the gym with the fighters, or when we can have shows, or at a show, or it's Theo's football, or my daughter with her music, because she's producing music and she's working on a DJing as well. So if I'm not doing football with him, then I'm upstairs and listening to her sets and you know, we're going through music that way. So that's kind of like all my life is, really, to be honest, and training myself. That's it.
Mate, that's not a bad answer. It's not a bad answer. Okay, let's get into it. So I've obviously been following your journey, sharing the grassroots journey with your son. Some fantastic videos of his dedication, of, you know, the work that he does on the pitch, in your back garden, you know, grafting away on his skills. Clearly hugely passionate about the game. Tell me a little bit about, you know, can you sum up how your experience has been in grassroots football, particularly given in mind that, you know, your day job is working with world champions in the boxing arena?
Well, first of all, I love it. I absolutely love it. Let me rewind a little bit. I used to, before I started training bigger name fighters and getting on TV and stuff like that, I started off, I was coaching kids in boxing. So I've taken kids in boxing from 6 years old to 18-year-old turning professional, all the way through. So I've worked with kids on that side of things. Had my own amateur boxing club, went around the country with kids and things like that. So that was boxing. I love football, but my little boy had no interest whatsoever when he was young. And I was like, oh, he's not going to want to play football. So I kind of like give up on it. There's a thing called mini kicks.
Yeah.
And I used to say to him, oh, do you want to go to try mini kicks? He'd be like, no, not bothered. Like, okay, just left it to him. That's it. He just said, I'm going to try mini kicks. I was like, oh, okay. He went the one Sunday, and from that day on, he's loved football. That's it. And he's got it. And I was like, oh, thank God. So he then, when I think it was under sevens, it was under sevens. He started training first, and he played for this team, Bramley Sunnyside, and we had double teamed, and it was a bit of a mess. The coaches had to leave, and we as parents, we was just like, that was his first season under sevens, right at the beginning, and so myself and one of the other dads said, look, we'll take over because it just gets expanded. So we stepped in. So that was our first season under sevens. And
was it literally a case of necessity because no one else put their hand up?
Yeah.
I mean, it happens a lot, obviously. It's how some great coaches have started, to be honest.
Yeah. So I said to Dean, who was the manager, I said, I can't manage the team because I ain't got time for all the paperwork side of things and all the hassle that side it brings at grassroots level. I said, but I will coach them and I'll commit to coaching them. So we coached from that season onwards. I've worked basically. I've had the same group. I've added 2 last season, and we've had 2 more this season. That's it. The nucleus of my team is the same kids that I've had for 4 years now. This is my 4th season. So we've, my little boy got into that in that reason. So I came on board. Obviously, as a dad, you playing about with him in football, but to be a footballer, he's very smart at school. He's top of the class, 10 out of 10 on all these little tests and stuff like that, maths, English, all that. He's very, very intelligent, but he wants to be a footballer. Now, I get where people say, oh, isn't that sweet, isn't that cute? Make sure you've got a backup plan, blah, blah.
Sure.
But people don't emphasise and don't give the kids support, whether it's football, dancing, music, whatever it is, right? People adults don't generally give them the same support when it comes down to these sort of like abnormal sort of jobs that, compared to the normal 9 to 5s. When it's school, if you want to do that, you must do this, you must do that. Sit down 6 hours a day, make sure you learn, make sure you're doing this, make sure you're doing that. But then when it becomes a kid that says, I want to be a footballer, I want to be a tennis player, I want to be that, we're kind of like, just let them get off and do it. I've always said, because I didn't have that as a child myself. I was the kid that was looking on the side of the pitch, looking to see if your mum and dad would turn up. They never did. Everybody else's mum and dads were there. Mine was never there.
Yeah.
I have always said that whatever my kids want to go into, I will back them 100%. And if they stick with it, they've had that support, they've had them opportunities to become the best that they can be. He's 9. He might turn around in a year's time and say, Dad, you know what? I'm not going to play this season. He loves watching Formula 1. He'll sit there and he'll watch Formula 1, watch him go, and I'm like, that's boring for me. But he loves Formula 1. He'll watch every race live. He might turn around and say, Dad, I'm not bothered about football. I want to be a Formula 1 driver.
Yeah.
Okay.
Every chance. Yeah.
But there's also a chance that he may actually want to pursue this the whole way through, like I did with boxing. I wanted to box, and that's it. I stuck with it. Now, if he's got that mentality, then if I was one of these, like my dad, that didn't really go out and play football and didn't do stuff with him, then I am stopping him, or I'm holding him back from achieving his potential and becoming as good as he could possibly want to be. He wants to be the best. He doesn't just want to be a footballer. He wants to be the best. So he's willing. His attitude is, I know. I once had a conversation with all my little boys, all my team, and we was looking around at all the pictures. There was all different teams playing on all these pictures at a facility. And I said to him, I said, see all these kids here? I said, 90% of them, they all want to be footballers. I said, and they're all out there, they're all wanting to be footballers. Just what you can see here, there's hundreds of kids. They're like, yeah. I says, in every park, in every facility where there's football teams, all these kids are wanting to do the same. Going around every city, every country, everybody wants to be a footballer. I says, the amount of kids that actually make it to be footballers is minuscule. I give them a statistic, like 1 in a million or something like that. I forget what it was. I said, so do you understand how hard and how determined and how dedicated you've got to be if you want to make it?
Yeah.
Now, I had this conversation with them. I think it was about under eights level, under nines level, just letting them know how it is, you know, because got to talk. I talk to my kids as kids, but like little men, you know, they understand.
Yeah.
Because that way you can manage disappointment. You can manage, you know, if it's no
Absolutely.
good wanting to do something if you're not, you know, and then getting upset about it if you don't pull it off. If you never put in the work for it, you know, you've got to understand that work's got to go with it. And he's always remembered that, and so he's always said that I want to be the best, but I'm willing to work harder than anybody else is.
Brilliant.
So if he's understanding that at 9 years old, then why can't I match that with whatever opportunities I can help him with? If he says to me, Dad, can we go on back and have a game of football? I might have just come in, working with my fighters. I'm absolutely knackered. I might have just done a session myself. And then he comes in and says, he said it to me, I'm on the bike. I'm on the bike earlier on this morning, and he's not at school today. We've got a day off. And he just said to me, he says, I fancy doing a leg circuit. I was like, okay, I'm on bike. So I said, let me just finish on my warm-up. I'll do this as a warm-up and we'll do his leg circuit. So that's it. I will never say no to him, because while everyone wants to do it, I will help him do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a massive, massive role for me as a parent, as a grassroots coach, whatever. While ever the kids want to do something, if you keep backing them with it, the more they're going to want to do it. Because there's only so many times that a kid's going to say, can we do this? When you say, later, no. And then they're going to be like,
yeah,
I'll play on my Xbox.
Yeah. So, I mean, for you, that's a completely different way, because you'll have parents out there who've seen the riches that footballers can get, seen the lifestyle, seen the kind of what they perceive as attainable kind of benefits from football, and that might be the driving factor. And obviously, that, you know, they might take on the role of kind of tactical analysis in the house for Sky Sports on their TV and what have you, when in reality they probably need to put their kid with someone who understands how kids develop and how they learn and understands the game. But with you there, and what you're saying is just be supportive as a parent. Be supportive as a parent. Be there for them, support their dreams.
Yeah.
And see what happens.
And do you know what I've always instilled in the kids that I coach? And listen, grassroots football is not about winning, right? But when you have a group of kids that actually want to win, are willing to work harder than ever, then it kind of is, right? Because there's nothing. Our big thing was always about who can do the best celebrations when you score a goal. So in order to celebrate, they've got to score a goal.
Yeah.
Right? Because otherwise there's no celebration. That's it.
Yeah.
So they have fun with it. But the thing is if you can instill into kids, no matter what it is they're doing, if you can instill into kids that as long as they are willing to work hard, they can achieve anything. Yeah. Don't let anybody tell you you can't achieve anything.
Yeah.
Right? As long as you can instill that into your kids, for me, that's a massive thing, because whether it's football, whether it's going into a job interview, whether it's, I'd love to get that job as a floor manager, but I don't think I could do it. Change that mentality where if they've got the mentality where they believe that they can achieve something, then why not? You know, because I'll tell you something, every footballer that you watch on TV believe that you can be a footballer.
Absolutely.
Maybe there was a time when they didn't, but they had to have that belief that drove them past everybody else saying you're never going to make it. Yeah. Because if you don't believe that, and if you don't build that psychosis into them, then when people do tell them, crap, you're never going to make it, you're too small, you're too slow, you know? Then they're going to listen to that and they're going to go, oh, you're right. So then they're going to start going out with mates and having a pint and things like that. Because I speak to so many people that were very good as a footballer, and everybody expected them to become footballers, and they were academies, they had opportunities, but they chose to start going down the local and having a pint with the regular mates. That's it. The mates that work 9 to 5 that can afford to do that. Yeah. But you can't afford to do that if you want to be a footballer or a boxer or a tennis player or anything like that. You have to live a certain way. And if your kid's willing to do that, if he's telling you that he's willing to do that, then you have to back that up.
Absolutely.
Every one of my kids, even when we used to play as a double, and the first team would go out and they'd be 8-0, they'd lose 8-0. My team, my boys, would believe that they could turn that round. And do you know what? They did quite a lot, you know, and they've gone through each season believing that they can try any skill, any trick, any pass, any shot. They've got no consequences because they don't look at me and think, shut up. Because they know that I want them to try things. I want them to express the thing.
Brilliant.
And so they've got the confidence to try that. And we play great football at this age, and the season before, and the season before that. We've always had a reputation of playing great football because my kids aren't scared of making a mistake. They're not afraid of it. Now, what happens is when you start telling them that well, don't try that because you're not good enough to do that yet, you're putting doubts in thread. So they're not gonna try things. You know? My kid will try. My son will try anything. He'll try something in training. He'll do something. He'll try something up back garden. And then his attitude is, there's no point in trying it in training if I don't try it in a match.
Yeah.
And he'll go and try it in a match. Sometimes it doesn't come off. But he's not one of these. He doesn't look at me. I see kids that look straight across at the dad when something goes wrong, when a kid beats them, when they make a pass and it don't go on. And I hate that because.
So how do you deal with that? How do you deal with the parents in that situation?
Well, our parents great because of the kids and the parents, because it's been kind of like the same parents all through. Any new kids have kind of like I've explained to them how I coach them, you know, and I've explained to them how it is. We don't, you know, we don't stifle as kids, and so our parents get it, so it's fine. When we play other teams, mate, I've been disgusted. So I've had to actually tell parents before. I remember we was at under sevens, under sevens. It was the first season, and these are babies, right?
Yeah.
And there was a parent that was over on the other side, obviously on the other side of the pitch to us. He's shouting at his kid, like he's not a coach, he's shouting. And I don't mean this to be in such a bad way, right? But the guy must have been about 20 stone and maybe 3 inches taller than me, right? Yeah. He's not athletic. So it's not even like he can say to his kid, do it like this, and start running him. He's telling his kid to do more running. He's telling his kid to do that. But he's not telling him. He's shouting at him. Yeah, and it got to the point that the kid just stood in the middle of the pitch. It's one of the most heartbreaking things I've seen in grassroots football. He stood in the middle of the pitch. This is under sevens. Just started crying his eyes out. Mate, I'm really laid back and I'm very polite.
I get you, yeah.
But I had to tell him about himself. You know, when you're doing that, the kid's not going to, in a couple of years' time, that kid's away from football. He's not going to carry on playing football. You know, he's shouting about, and it disgusts me because I see this and I see these kids that they make a mistake. And I've had, you know, a couple of kids that have come to us one of the kids that come to us this season, he had that same thing. The first thing I had to say to him in training is, when if misplaced a pass, he'd look straight at it. I'm like, mate, don't worry. I said, don't worry about it. I said, don't worry about it. I said, just keep doing it. And I'll laugh at him. I'll laugh about it when we make a mistake. My little boy, you know, he'll take a shot and it might go miles over the bar, and we'll have a laugh about it on pitch. He'll look at me and like put his hands up in his you know, over his shoulders, and I'll have a laugh about it. We'll all have a laugh about it. So they're not afraid of it. When you get these parents and these some of these coaches that you hear the way they talk to the kids, man, you just think, how long before that child walks away from the sport? Because it's like getting them beat down. So my philosophy is, you make these kids believe that they can achieve anything. Believe that they can achieve anything. If they're willing to put in the work, or as long as they're willing to work harder than anybody else, when they believe that they can achieve anything, you'll be surprised what these kids can do. You'll be surprised how well these kids at 9 years old can play.
Yeah,
you know?
if they're having fun, if they're enjoying it. Fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, in terms of coaching the kids, then you've got fantastic background in terms of bringing kids through the boxing system. So the understanding of childhood psychology, the understanding of exactly what you just described was already in you. So it's not like you're starting, because I think the big problem, and you've just described one of the biggest problems, is when you've got people who understand the game to some level from a different perspective, either as a fan or as a player, and they go and try and impose that on the kids.
Yeah,
that I think is where the problem is. If they don't take the time to step back and think, how do kids learn?
Yeah.
What values? What we're trying to do here outside football as well, then it's a recipe for, you know, that type of situation.
Yeah.
So you've got that already, but what's your view on the game in terms of coaching it? In terms of, well, I mean, what's your plan once Theo finishes? Are you just gonna step out of the game? Or do you want to stay involved in the game in the future? I mean, obviously you've got limitations because you've got a business to run, you've got, you know, a lot of training commitments and what have you. But I mean, how do you gem up on football in terms of coaching and the technical stuff? Because, you know, for me, there's technical, tactical, psychosocial and physical, the four corners that the FA will talk about.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really good starting point for any coach to just take a step back and go, well, what am I doing in the four corners? You don't have to stick to it, don't have to be rigid in what you do, but it's a good place to reference what you're doing. And I think you've probably got, you know, certainly the social and psych and the physical stuff, even the, you know, the technical stuff to some point in terms of breaking stuff down, because you know the process of coaching, you know how to break down the technique in the boxing environment. My assumption is you should be able to do that in the football environment. But what do you do to fill the gaps?
You see, I love what I do. I love the football side. I love the coaching side of things. So, you know, Sundays excite me. I can't wait for grassroots.
Yeah, brilliant.
I can't wait for training. You know, my little boy gets coached at an academy and things like that. So, and I'm always there. When I've got fights on, I'll be up early the next morning. I might not stay in the hotel. I'll drive back to make sure I'm back for the next morning.
Brilliant.
For the football sessions. So I would love to do more. I would love to do more in it. As far as coaching is concerned, I do, you know, you touched on it there. I do believe that a big part of coaching, whether it's boxing or whether it's football, is it's no good being academically and you've studied the game and you've done these courses and things like that and you know how it should be done. If you can't deal with a certain individual psyche and mentality and
Absolutely.
know how to get the best out of it, there are kids that I deal with now that you can see have got like little confidence. You start seeing it blossom a little bit, and then they might have a bad game, and then you've got to put your arm around them and tell them, what are you worried about? Keep smiling. What's the matter with you? You've got to be able to get that out of them because these are young men, young boys that are finding out about themselves. Forget about football; they're finding about themselves, and football's a big part of it. Football might just be a release for a lot of trouble that they're having at home or at school and things like that. You know, where the confidence getting a battering. So you've got to understand how to break that down. You've got to understand how to get into their mentality and into the heart. Really, they've got to trust you, and you've got to understand what's going to build them. You might not see it, you know, grassroots. You might not see it in the kid for 3 seasons, but you've got to keep taking those little steps and putting those blocks in to try and build that little boy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that commitment over long term is massive, isn't it? Because if you just think short term, Saturday's result, and then it's the end of the world, well, you're killing the kid and you're killing yourself. But if you recognise and you can measure that over 3 years, this kid's confidence has become more physically literate, become more confident outside of football environment. They're brilliant benefits from come straight from grassroots football.
But you wouldn't be able to, if you don't know how to do that personality wise, if you haven't got that persona about you, and if you haven't got that approachability about you, then you could be technically the best, and you could have a conversation with me and blow my head off when you're talking about tactics and this and that and other, and I'd be like, wow, I'm so out of my depth. But I might get the best out of that kid, and you can't. You know?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. For me, that is a major thing. It's like you are in football now. There are certain managers that are fantastic, pedigree of winning and things like that are unbelievable. But then when you look at the footballers that they've worked with, the top quality footballers that they've worked with, and they never got the best out of them, they've gone elsewhere, and you see what they're achieving elsewhere, and you think, well, how is that? Because and surely that's got to be down to coaching. Isn't just about making somebody tactically more aware, teaching them how to do a flick, a trick, a pass, or whatever. It's not. It's a lot more than that. It's
Absolutely.
A lot more than that. And your job as a coach, for me, is to get the best out of the potential. Yes, you got to improve the potential, you've got to improve ability, but you've got to be able to get it out of them.
Yeah.
You know? And
no, absolutely.
That's where I think a lot has to do with it, and that's where I will say, I will never say I'm a good coach. I'll never say I'm a good coach in boxing. Forget football. I'm not a good coach in boxing. I'll never say that. But what I will say is that I know how to break things down. I know how to get my fighters, and obviously for the last 4 years now, I know how to get my little boys, my footballers, to understand what I need them to do, understand that they can actually do that, and then to go out and deliver it.
Yeah.
It happens week in, week out. So, that's what I think is a massive importance in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, it's like anything in life, the balance is so important. I mean, you've got to have some knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to have a huge amount of knowledge. You talk about tactics, for example.
Yeah.
Working with 9-year-old footballers or 10-year-old footballers, tactics really doesn't come into it, in my opinion. It's, if you can help them to understand how to control a ball, how to feel confident, how to repeat certain actions, then the tactics will take care of itself in time. But that's the age when they're learning and they're experimenting, they're trying, they're playing with freedom, and they'll come up with the tactics for you half the time. You don't need to think about positions. A centre half can go up front, a fullback can go and play in the middle of the park. It really doesn't matter. They don't really have positions at that age. But a couple of things you said then. I mean, Julian Nagelsmann, who's his team, Red Bull, who got to the Champions League semi-final. Yeah. He's one of these coaches that I always felt was, okay, he's going to be a laptop coach, this guy. He started young, started coaching when he was 21, 22. He's going to be purely about the statistics, his coaching courses, his theory. But he has got to the top, in my opinion, because he appreciates the balance that you've just described. Because he said not a lot long ago that he feels that 70% of the work of a top manager is about interpersonal skills. The other 30% is your tactics and your football specific stuff. But it's literally that big a balance, or that big a reliance on the ability to communicate, to motivate people, to spot problems that people have in and outside of football, and then to find a way of getting a tune out of them and preparing them and putting them in the right environment to perform at their peak levels. And that's what he feels elite football is about. And to be honest, the guy's not doing a bad job. He's 32 or whatever. He's a Champions League semi-finalist. He can probably go on to bigger things. So, that's a pretty good reference point. And I think the other thing that occurred to me, Dave, and it's a question really for you now. If you'd have played as much football as you did boxing, and, if you'd have got to the similar level, I know you were area title type boxer, not obviously world level, but a serious level. If you'd have had that type of career in football, do you think you'd have been able to coach in the way that you like to coach now?
Experience has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
And so, you see, this is the thing, is just because somebody's successful as a player doesn't mean that they're going to be successful as a coach.
Absolutely.
It's just like with boxing, just because you're a great fighter doesn't mean you're going to be a great coach, and vice versa. And, you look at people talk about your players like, your managers like Ferguson and people like that. Good, steady footballers, but nothing world level, nothing superstar. But then you look at the success that they had, and the same thing goes in my sport, in boxing. It doesn't necessarily mean it. What it does do, it gives you more of an understanding to what their psyche is, because you might have experienced things that they're experiencing on the pitch. In certain type of games, in certain level of if you played a Champions League semi-final, and then you're coaching a bunch of guys that's going into a Champions League semi-final, you can talk to them on a level of what to expect, how the mentality is going to be during the game. You can identify how they're thinking certain things, because I've boxed every level in boxing. I boxed 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 rounds. I boxed guys that fought for world titles, guys that won world titles. I've boxed at a good level. I might not have achieved, great things, but I've experienced those sort of. So when my fighters they're in a 12-rounder, and they get to round 9. Round 9 is always a wall. And 9, and it's like, I know what they're thinking. I know what they're thinking, and I can identify the thoughts that are going through. It's the same thing as when you're a football coach, really. If you've played at them sort of levels, you kind of understand the thinking. You understand if you missed a penalty in a penalty shootout, and then you're coaching a kid that's just missed a penalty in a big World Cup semi-final or whatever, you can put your arm around him and you can talk to him, and he's likely to take more on board of what you're saying, because he knows that you've been there and done that.
Yeah.
When you haven't, then there's those little types of experiences you can't relay.
Yeah.
You can have an understanding. Of course, you can have an understanding. You can get that, yeah, because you perhaps know that on a broader band of how the mind works and your mentality. And maybe you can identify that with something else that's gone off in your life, different disappointments, how you took that on board and you came back from it.
Yeah.
But to actually identify with what that player is feeling right now, you can't.
Yeah.
So there are different parts that will work and different parts that you don't really need to be having played at that sort of level.
Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, good stuff. So finally, before I just go into a little bit of sort of more elite coaching and see if we can just compare what you see in boxing with football in terms of managing your own son. How do you find that? How do you deal with the times when you're compromised a little bit? You're watching the apple of your eye. Do something good or something bad. How do you balance that? And how long do you think you're gonna want to stay connected before he moves on? Beyond.
I find. Do you know what? I think a lot of people, not just in football, in boxing, in so many things in life, I think a lot of people make things more complicated than what they are. It's like what I say, some coaches, they make out that training fighters and what have you, it's rocket science. It's not. It's not rocket science. It's not. And whether you are a genius, successful, or you're still going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
You're still going to have fighters that lose. Best managers in football are still going to have matches that they lose.
Absolutely.
They're still going to have tactics that are wrong. They're still going to take the wrong player off, and then it's created a goal opportunity for another player on, and he's made a mistake. Oh God, what you brought him on for? There's always going to be mistakes.
Yeah.
So with me, with my son, it's not complicated. When he plays for a team, and when he trains with a team, this is where I find it hard, is that I can't give him the credit that he actually deserves, because he is really good and he does work. One thing I will say is I've seen a kid at that age ever work as hard as what this kid does and have the same attitude as what this kid does and the same mentality.
Yeah.
He is phenomenal. And I'm talking about boxing or football that I've dealt with. His mentality is unreal. And because of that, he deserves more credit than what he gets. But I can't give it him because I'm his coach.
Of course.
So it's like, I know we have a man of the match, but we never pick it. It's always the opposite coaches. So when he wins the man of the match, I can't be that proud. Dad, get in, well done, son. When we're in the car, then I tell him how proud of him and everything like that. Then I'm his dad. But in front of her, it's just like, well done, mate, nice one. That's all I said. Well done, mate, nice one. He'll score an absolute worldie, and I'll be like, well done, mate, brilliant that. Another kid scores a worldie. Like,
you'll be giving it a big one. Yeah, really cheer him up. Yeah.
So because of that, I miss out on something there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he understands because I have explained to him. I said, look, you understand, and he gets it. He knows because he's seen that where he went through a period where every other man, they kept giving him man of matches, and it was like, well, you were embarrassed. I was like, oh, do you know what I mean? But he does, and he understands it doesn't mean anything. It's just so, and his attitude is, it's just somebody's opinion. That's it. That's his attitude. Whether somebody thinks that you've done well or not, it's somebody's opinion. He gets that at 9 years old, so it's fine. It helps him cope with things like that. He doesn't feel pressures and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But as for coaching, I do feel as though I miss out on that dad side of things because I'm his coach. But we manage it really well because we've got a great relationship. When we have a kickabout at home, I'm not his coach. I'm his dad having a kickabout, and we'll have a laugh. I make a mistake, he makes a mistake, we have a laugh. But when he wants to practice something, then I'll give him pointers on it, and then we just leave it to it, because otherwise you have that where the coach of the team that your son plays for, the son never has a kickabout with his dad. He's always having He's always having a training session with the coach.
Yeah, it's too structured.
When we have a kickabout, we have a laugh. That's it. We have, ball goes over the fence, we technically reset. We have a laugh.
Yeah.
When even this, we do this leg circuit together. I'm not coaching him. I've showed him what we're going to do and stuff like that because he's wanted to do it. And then when we're doing it, I'm training with him. I do it with him, and he's trying to beat me, and he's trying to because he loves that competitiveness. So he's trying to beat me, but we're doing it together. It's like a teammate rather than coach. So you have to, as a coach of your boy, you have to know when to separate that. Otherwise, that's when it gets that your kid misses that. Whereas everybody else in the team gets to play with the dad, gets to have a kick about with the dad and have a laugh with the dad. Your son is only ever getting to have a kick about and train with his coach, not his dad. Do you know what I mean? So I make sure that we have that, and so I manage it really, really well. So I don't find there's any problems with it, and and he doesn't either.
And what about completely unrelated, really, but it is related, electronics and stuff like that? Is he into his computer games and stuff?
Loves his Xbox. Plays Formula One, a Formula One racing game, and he plays FIFA. But he doesn't go in every day. Right. And that is something because I'm one of the. I see, and other parents have told me about how their kids have dipped when they've been on the Xbox every day, especially when during lockdown they're on Xbox every day, and you would see like a difference in the concentration, in the motivation to do anything else. So when he's played football or when he's trained, well, go and do what you want. It's fine, no problem. But I'll make sure that if he's on it all the time, I'll say, well, listen, why don't you watch some cartoons, some fun cartoons? He watches Tom and Jerry, he watches Scooby Doo and things like that. Yeah. To stay as a kid.
For sure.
A lot of cartoons these days that aren't actually funny cartoons. They're quite serious and quite
serious undertones.
It's like I want him away from, because he's very competitive and he's very driven. Away from that, I want him to stay as the 9-year-old boy. I want him to be a kid and enjoy his childhood. Yeah. So he loves his cuddly toys. He's got about 1 million cuddly toys. Wherever we go, we go farms, go to little zoos and things like that. Yeah. All the time, he gets all that sort of stuff. So you have to be able to blend that in. You have to let him go on his Xbox and be a normal kid, because everybody else is doing that.
It's part of being a kid in this day and age, isn't it? I mean, it's a real challenge. I mean, my lad's 12 and very similar in many respects. I mean, he's really talented kid. Did excellent, in football in the UK and over here. But I think the lockdown and accommodate, and also the family's 12, so he's getting, he's a little bit more interested in girls and stuff like that now. The Fortnite and the Xbox, PlayStation culture, which, to be honest, 99% of his friends are massively invested in. Yeah. It gets to them in the end, I think, and you can put rules in place and say no, or you can accept that they need to be part of their social group. But I know a lot of coaches at all sorts of levels and all over the world have this challenge, and I think that every parent needs to think about, but every coach as well, because coaches need to be aware of what type of lives the kids are living away from football.
Yeah, definitely. And but you can't, in this day and age, you can't put a blanket ban on it. No, you have to monitor it, and it's like anything in moderation. It's like you don't want your kids to be sat there eating chocolate all the time, but you can't say no, never.
Of course,
you've trained, you're again football, you've burnt a lot of. Go and treat yourself. Do you know what I mean? You've got to have things in moderation, because otherwise, what happens then is that they resent it, and then they get to a certain age, and then they go, do you know what? Too regimented this. I don't want to do this. I'm not having no fun. I'm not having no. You know what I mean? So they've got to have that little valve, that relief valve, and then they get the best of both worlds, really, because they're still being a kid. They're still enjoying doing things that other kids do, but they're still on track to achieve what they want to achieve and get that get that lifestyle that they want when they grow up. We all have dreams of what we want to be when we grow up. Yeah. But like I said, I'll go back to what I said before. Too many people want to tell you that you can't do it. Yeah. Too many people want to tell you that you can't do it, whether it's, like I said, whether it's music, whether it's boxing, whether it's football. There will be people that will say, oh, well, you need to make sure you work hard at this because... But nobody says when you get into school, no, you're studying your maths and you're studying things like that. Nobody says, oh, well yeah, I know you're putting eggs in it because you want to be a doctor, you want to be this, but you might not be, so you need to do this, take the time, do this, do that. Nobody does it the other way around.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
conform to this where everybody's got to do it this one way, and if you do anything away from the box, outside the box, it's kind of like, Ooh, but you know, I always say, I said this to my fighters, and I've said to my little boy, and my little boy took it on board. When Ronaldo was a little kid, and he was telling people that he's going to be the best player in the world, or even when a little kid says he's going to be a footballer when he grows up, everybody pats him on the head. Oh, isn't that sweet? Oh, lovely that. Don't take it as serious. But in that little Ronaldo's head, he's working harder than everybody else, He's driven. He wants to. Somebody, somewhere, has got to end up being the best footballer in the world.
Yeah.
Somebody, somewhere, has got to end up being the best fighter in the world. Lomachenko, Usyk, your Tyson Fury's, your Anthony Joshua's. When they started out and they said, I'm going to be best fighter in the world, people have looked at me, yeah, shut up, yeah, or have a backup plan. But somebody's got to do it. So why not you? If you're willing to work harder than anybody else, why can't you be the best footballer in the world?
Well, the thing is, the benefit of that process is that you also know that if you drop down a couple of levels, that a lot of people can access a good level, a good journey, something to look back on. I mean, you had a career to be proud of as a fighter. Now, your experts on the keyboards might be saying, well, he was shite, but no, you weren't. You were a level of fighter that fought against ex-world champs and stuff like that. That's for the privileged few. But if any young kid gets to a level and plays League Two football, and we talked about James Coppinger a couple of weeks ago with Tony Mee. James Coppinger didn't make it in Newcastle, but the career that he's had at Doncaster Rovers and the ambassador that he is now for the game, for the club, and the amount of young kids in the area, in the local area that look up to him, is something to be incredibly proud of. And you're giving a kid an opportunity to get to that level and have that incredible pathway and that incredible experience. So I agree with you with the Ronaldo thing and what have you, and it's possible. But if it's a near miss, the likelihood is they're going to benefit as human beings as well.
Yeah, 100%. And what your attitude is in sport can take you into other things.
Absolutely.
Whether you walk away from a sport, but you've got that same sort of mentality, that same sort of drive force behind you. You go into another job and you don't just settle just to clock in, clock out. You may put you're more likely to push yourself. And
for sure.
You get more. You're getting a better income. You're getting a better lifestyle.
Yeah. I love it. It's just fantastic talking about football and not focusing too much on what everyone focuses on. Understanding the journey, understanding the impact on life, and what football can do to benefit society in general or kids' journeys is something that really interests me. Okay, so let's just move on a little bit to boxing and references to football. So, I mean, you've obviously worked with some of the best fighters in the game. Tony Bellew and the Mcdonnell brothers, and recently in Dillian White's corner and what have you. But in terms of trainers that are out there, do you think that there are trainers out there, a little bit like you're doing in some respects, who could turn their hand to other sports? I mean, you look at Adam Booth, for example. I mean, hugely respected, fantastic talker, really articulate guy, great communicator in that respect. Do you think that boxing trainers could take their skill set into other sports and be successful?
Because of their attitude in terms of willing to learn, willing to put in the work in. Yes, but it's like completely different sports.
Yeah.
So there has to be. It's like I don't just rock up and just coach my kids on a Tuesday and then turn up on a Sunday. I actually watch videos on stuff on YouTube and stuff of like with your top managers, your top coaches.
Yeah.
I watch football all the time, but not just the matches. I watch the breakdowns. I study it. Do you know what I mean? Because I want to. If I'm gonna do something, I don't want to do it half-assed. I want to.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Want the details.
So if you're willing to do that sort of thing, then yeah. But it's like it's like anything. If you walk into something blind and you don't do the groundwork behind, you're only get to a certain level. But if you study it to go along with the attitude, then yeah, why not?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not suggesting that. I don't know, Joe Gallagher could go and manage, Man City or someone tomorrow, but the skill set would probably mean that he could probably go in and communicate and break down technique and motivate and plan and deliver a process over time, maybe at a lower level, and work his way through. I mean, it's just it just occurs to me, particularly given the way you've talked about the game here, Dave, probably caught me a little bit off guard. I thought you might have said to me, well, actually, yeah, I have this and I do this and I do this, and this is specific to what the FA say, and I try. But actually, what you're saying is that's important, but a level above that in terms of developing kids and it's coaching at the end of the day. There's more coaching goes on at your age, that age group, than there goes on at the senior level.
Yeah.
Of course, there's detail, but it's tactical. There's so much more to it there. The coaching and developing kids from one level to the next level to the next level is what creates the talent pool. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting on that one. And then in terms of in-game management, I mean, can you tell me, you've got a fight. Let's say Tony Bellew has been put on his backside at Goodison Park by Makubu, and you're in a situation there in the same way that maybe Ferguson was, 1-0 down against Bayern Munich going into the late stages of the game. Do you see any reference points between football and boxing in that situation, in in-game management?
Yeah, because they've just, so Bellew gets dropped. First thing you have to do is check, you're all right, you're clear thinking, yeah. Once you establish that it's clear, his mind's clear, you explain to him what he's done wrong. You make him aware of what he's done wrong. Because if he's not aware of what he did wrong, he's going to go out there and do it again.
Yeah.
So in a football match, I've taken my group of players, right, and we've taken them to Barcelona on the Nou Camp pitch.
Yeah.
We played in
I remember seeing it. I remember seeing a couple of things on it.
So the kids have come out of the tunnel. Imagine being 8 years old, coming out of the tunnel at the Nou Camp, walking out with Champions League music, walking onto the pitch, line up on the pitch, music playing, and then having to actually play in a semi-final on that pitch. So the nerves. These are 8-year-old boys. I'd been crapping myself as an adult playing on there. But
absolutely,
8-year-old boys. Imagine the nerves against international teams. So you go 2 goals down in the first minutes, which is what we did in the semi-final. You still have to be able to instill that belief on them that they can turn it around, which they did. Yeah, it ended up drawing 2-2, and then we lost on penalties. But we're not talking about penalties. But it's a similar sort of thing. You've got to be able to come back from adversity. In boxing, forget about getting dropped. You might have a fighter that's winning. They hit the middle rounds. All of a sudden, they lose not 1 round, but 2 rounds on the bounce.
Yeah.
Everyone can lose a round, but when all fighters understand, when they lose 2 rounds on a bounce, it's like, oh shit, is there a shift in momentum here?
Yeah.
And you have to stop that shift in momentum. You have to get the momentum back. It's like that in football, in football that I'm experiencing, in regards that we've had where we, our first league game this season, we got off to a really bad start. We've had a great pre-season. We got off to a really bad start. After first half, we were 2-0 down, and lads were like, "Whoa, this hasn't happened for a long time." We were like, "What? Come off of the pitch. Don't worry about it, boys. Listen." And you have to explain to them what's caused those mistakes. What's caused those 2 goals. Explain to them that why are you getting caught in this situation. Oh, it's because your midfielders you two aren't running back. You're running up, but you're not running back. So
It doesn't have to be crazy detail, but just
so you explain to them, right? You understand what you need to do. Yeah, right. Okay. Now listen. Look at the passes you play that you're playing. Brilliant. You're brilliant. This, that. Your decision making, brilliant. Build it into them so they know that they're going to come back. Guys know. My kids know. No matter what's happening on that pitch, whether they concede a goal or what, they go behind or not, they know they can come back. That's their mentality. That's just how they've been brought up. They know that if we're 2-0 down, not a problem, we'll turn it around. And we did, and that's what you gotta have that belief. And even when we play great football, great passing football, but then we get on a pitch that's bobbly, that's awful, and we just can't play as football. So they know and they understand, okay, this ain't going to be one of those games where we're playing beautiful football. This is where you have to be strong. You have to be strong there, and you have to go and you make sure you win that ball. And they'll flick that switch and they'll go and do that. They understand what they have to do. And
look, people talk about playing good football. I mean, honestly, Dave, when anyone says to me, we play good football, usually the first thing I do particularly if they're, you know, if they claim to be, you know, a coach with, you know, the whatever. I'll say, well, what is good football to you? Because it could be, you know, good football to someone who played in the Liverpool side in the 1980s might be different to good football for a player in Pep's current Man City team. So you need to define it a little bit. But what you said there about the different conditions and what have you. For me, good football as you get towards senior football is being able to adapt to that situation. Now, for kids, they might not be able to adapt to a really windy day and a bobbly day at the age of 9, no problems, but the experience will help them to learn about it. And it doesn't matter if they don't adapt there, as long as when they get to 16, 17, 18 and they get into results football then, they can do. I think it's important. Good.
That definitely, that again though, with adapting to circumstances and situations and climates, you know, it's about how you condition the mind, you know. And the thing is that and it's a little bit controversial, I suppose, but the way that a lot of kids are brought up these days, and if people want to be offended, they can be offended, but the pampered too much.
Oh, God,
in a case that a kid thought, listen, when my kids, both my daughter and my son, when they were babies and they're learning how to walk and stumble and they fall, I just laugh at them, go and get up. You see people run to, oh, you're right.
Yeah.
This is what's happening on the pitch with a lot of kids these days, right? When I played football, right, I've always been small. I remember we played in France, Belgium, and Holland on a tour, and I played in Holland, and they played in size and ability. Forget this age group thing. And I was looking up at all these massive kids. I was like, what? They were like men. But you just had to tough it out, or you get up at pitch, you know. And you see these kids that literally a little shoulder barge, a little 50-50 challenge, and the kids are crying on the floor, or somebody goes past them, and because they've gone past them, they start crying. It's like, why are you letting this mentality develop? Kids shouldn't cry because somebody's beat him on a 50-50 or somebody's gone past him, you know.
But it's a soft middle class sport now, though, football, isn't it? I mean, brutally honest, it's my sport. It's what I love. You know, I mean, I'm a boxing fan, but football first for me always. And
mate, I look at this now, and you've just nailed it. Who was it? Martial got sent off for against Tottenham.
Who
did he give a little tap on cheek for?
Oh, Lamella.
It was
Lamella.
That's it, right? So he's tapped him on. Do you know, as a man, right? If I was to drop and roll around like that, I'd be embarrassed because that makes me look like such a wimp.
Right.
What? Matt, I bet you if he's got a kid, I bet his little kid taps him harder than that when they're wrestling about and playing back.
Yeah.
What is this mentality of dropping and I'm seeing it in these kids now that are coming through at 9 years old, you know? And it's like, what are you doing? You know, why are you allowing that to happen?
I mean, my take on it is that I don't think that's necessarily a reflection on society when they do it at the top level. I think it's a reflection on the money and the stakes involved. You know, like I always remember Rivaldo doing it in the World Cup. And do you remember someone kicked a ball at him at his knees?
Yes.
And he went down in a corner.
Yes.
I mean, that's the worst example I think I've ever seen. And the guy at the time was probably the Ballon d'Or. You know, he was probably the top player in the world.
Yeah.
And I just think it's kind of, you know, the stakes that and I've done it myself as a manager. I'll be brutally honest. You know, managing in England, not senior teams. I've said to them, listen, if you get clipped, you go down in a penalty area. You know, there's a way to manage a football match. There's a way to manage a referee, and I wouldn't tell 9-year-old kids to do that. They do it here in Spain, by the way. As soon as there's a free kick, they're taught at a very young age to stand in front of the ball. The coach is screaming, get in front of the ball, and at 8-9 years old, it's phenomenal. I mean, not phenomenal, not in a good way. Yeah. But back to the point, you know, football costs money to play to a level now that certain sections of society in the UK anyway, and I'd say the same over here actually, they can't afford to play structured football. They're still playing on the streets over here, maybe not in England, and I get embarrassed by the culture that's created, that, you know, that the Rivaldo type situation has created, that Lamella type situation has created. And I would much rather, honestly, my son went into a boxing gym, than walked into a football club. If I had a choice between the two and I could only choose the one to prepare him for life, I'd probably rather he walked into your gym in Rotherham, to be honest. And that's a real sad thing to say.
Yeah, definitely.
But it is what it is. Okay, listen, Dave. We've talked for about an hour. I reckon we probably could have talked for 4 or 5, to be honest. You're clearly really passionate about football, and I love that. And that's one of the reasons why I got in touch. Just quick shout out to Curtis Woodhouse. Thanks, Curtis, for putting me in touch with Dave. But yeah, listen, I've really enjoyed talking about it. I think, the things that I'll take away from it, and I hope other people watching will take away from it, is the way to treat young people. It's, forget coaching, and remember that football coaching isn't just about football. You don't have to be Jose Mourinho to be a good coach with a grassroots team, with any football team, if I'm brutally honest. But certainly the young impressionable kids, you've got an amazing resource in your hands. I think we all sometimes take it for granted, the great opportunity and the privilege we've got of working with young kids. I do it here with 14, 15-year-olds, and I love, what I get back from it. People say, well, you're giving so much to the group. No, they're giving to me, because if I see 100%. Something that they have benefited from, it makes me feel $1 million. And I think I want the coaches who watch this to kind of take from a guy who's trained world champs, who's constantly in the public eye in another sport, and to see the values you've kind of transferred into the game, despite the fact that you're a Man United fan, despite the fact that you will no doubt have been influenced by that journey to some degree. You're not taking them and saying, I want you to be Roy Keane and I want you to be Steve Bruce or Martial or whatever. You're saying be you, and I'm going to give you the support and confidence to do that. So I think that's amazing, Dave. So thanks so much for coming on. I really enjoyed it. I hope you have too.
It's been good. It's been really, really good. Like you said, thanks to my old fighter Curtis Woodhouse. You see, Curtis is another one. He just touching on him. When he came to me, right, leaving football, the first thing I said to him is, "Are you mad? Are you mad? You're actually..." And it was an unbelievable story where it would say, he's playing at Old Trafford, and he's not asked. He just weren't bothered, and I'm like, wow. And then you look at somebody like him that's achieved what he's achieved in football, to go across to boxing and become British champion in boxing. That's phenomenal, that is. But his work ethic and his determination that he had in boxing is something that he said was different to what it was when he was football. When he was in football, he didn't have that same sort of attitude. So if I look at the attitude that he had in football, but yet he achieved so much, how much could he have achieved if he had the same attitude in boxing, as in football? But he's a special character. Mentality, one of the hardest workers that I ever came across, and one of the most focused and driven individuals that I've ever worked with. And so thanks to Curtis for
definitely. Well, top. I mean, listen, I'll never ever forget jumping around my living room. When we lived back in the UK, and when he beat Darren Hamilton. I just think it's just one of the greatest stories in sport. I really do. I mean, it's not hyperbole. I think to go from playing at Old Trafford, that picture of him with, challenging Beckham when he was playing for Birmingham, to go and to win a British title. I mean, people who don't know boxing that much won't realise that a British title is something to be incredibly proud of. And
don't forget, he had losses along the way. We had setbacks, and he kept going. So it's, a lot of people thought as soon as he gets beat, he'll be done, but he didn't. And then he lost again, and he didn't. And you know what I mean? And he's a perfect example of what determination and hard work can do. He's a perfect example, because he wasn't the most skillful fighter you'll ever see. He wasn't the most skillful boxer you'll ever see. But that determination, that drive, and that ambition, that shows you. Football, boxing, that shows you what you can achieve.
Yeah, it's. I mean, that's the thing that's transferable, isn't it? Your character, your willingness to work hard, your dedication to something, whether it's football, and clearly didn't have it in football for whatever reason.
No.
But anyone, if your lad or my lad, leaves football and stops playing at some stage, and takes anything they've learned from football about building their character, about the process of dedication and what benefits you can get from it, and apply it to anything else in life, then football's been good to them.
Yeah, 100%.
Class. Dave, thanks so much, pal. Really appreciate your time. All the best. Thanks for coming on.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for having me. Thanks.
Take care. Bye.
Cheers, mate. Bye.